So most reps are completely tanking their email reply rates without even realizing it, because it all starts with the subject line. And when I fixed this in my own cold emails, I went from a 35% open rate and a 4% reply rate to consistent 50% open rates and a 9% reply rate. And Frank, one of my clients, went from 3% to 12% reply rates, and Christian was able to book 3 enterprise meetings in a day with this process. So in this video, I'm just going to be talking about the biggest mistakes that reps make when it comes to subject lines, so you know what not to do and what you should be doing in 2025. So the first thing is rep subject lines are just way too long. The longer you have the subject line, the less of the preview text you get available. So when you send somebody an email, before they even click it, they get to read a little bit to see if they want to open it. So say the subject line plus hey name and then a few characters. You get around 30 to 40 characters. So if you have a huge subject line, you get less of that first line real estate, which is the most important thing. As I've spoken about in other videos on my channel, the trigger is why we're reaching out. That's the context, that's the relevancy, that's why you should care. So if you have a super large subject line, the prospect misses that, which means they're probably not going to open it in the first place. The second thing is if it's super long, if it's like a sentence, they're going to instantly think this is a sales email. When we're reaching out to a prospect, we've got to understand that they're doing their day to day. If we're reaching out to a CFO, for example, they don't really want to respond to sales emails all day. They're managing their team, checking the finances, managing the cash flow, doing their own jobs to help them hit their KPIs. So if they think this is a sales email, they're just going to get rid of it straight away and put it in the bin. So what you should be thinking is it should be like a little Slack headline, like 2 words, just talking about the context of the message. The second thing is using questions and punctuation. And I think one of the most popular subject lines back in the day was quick question or think this could help, like just random things. But again, these have been so overused. And if we send this to a prospect now, they immediately know this is going to be a sales email. Nobody messages internally like that. So if they, again, think this is coming from outside the organization, they're not going to respond because they don't want to. It used to work in 2020 where you could just blast a list of 10,000 people and get hundreds of responses, but now it's really not working, as this year is all about relevancy and how you're standing out. The third thing, again, is another classic that used to work, which is like company name, X company name. And it's for the same reasons as the above. If the prospect has any idea that this is going to be a sales email, they're not going to respond. As I've said so many times, but it's so important. So never ever put your company name in the subject line. If it's relevant enough, then they'll respond. The only time we should be talking about ourselves, our company, is when we're explaining how we help them solve a clear issue that they have in their day to day. The fourth thing is no buzzwords and adjectives. So things like streamline, optimize, 10x, enhance, like all these adjectives are just filler words which don't really have any inherent value. For marketing emails where, for example, if your company's running a sequence to a large list of people who've subscribed, that can make sense because they're longer emails. It's trying to explain, trying to give a story. But your job is to explain what's going on in their day to day, in their world, what's the issue, and how have you helped others fix it. So when you're giving vague things like streamline, optimize, it's not tangible, so it doesn't add any value. We want to be talking about real numbers in the body of the email, so cut all the adjectives from the subject line. And the last thing is trick subject lines, and hopefully none of you are doing this, but this is things like a fake ring or forward, or my CEO asked me to reach out. Again, even if this helps you get opened, which it can do, you could be at a 60% open rate, because the prospect feels like they've been tricked into it, they're not actually going to respond. If they do, it's not going to be a positive reply. Starting a relationship on that fake trust is the worst way to do it, especially if you're doing B2B trying to get serious deals going. So never ever try to set a relationship up on a fake promise, on a fake message. It just doesn't work. And even if they open it, they're not going to respond because they're not going to be happy. So what's working in 2025? It's really simple. We need to keep it as short as possible and as vague as possible. Now, let me explain what that actually means. So when I say vague, is the topic of the email. So if I'm reaching out to a sales leader, talking about they've recently hired some reps and curious how they're going about ramping them, talk about the issues and how I've helped others, my subject line would literally just be ramp time or John's ramp if John is the rep, right? The reason for that is we have to think, what is this person talking about in their day to day anyway? Because if it seems like something they talk about, they discuss, it's not going to pass their like spam filter. It's not going to flag in their head, and they're more likely to open it. So we need to keep it as simple as possible. Another thing is to use title case. So again, I think it's been talked about quite a lot where all lowercase works, things like this, but I'm a big data guy and the data shows from Gong, from Lavender that title case works best. So capital for the first word, capital for the second word, no adjectives, no fluff, just make it about the topic of the email. That is the easiest way to get opens, get replies. And then the body of your email is all about where you're talking about pains. So don't add like a fake gimmicky promise in the subject line. Explain the value in the body. The job of the subject line is to sell the open. Just focus on selling the next step, getting someone to open the message. Then when they open it, your first line is to get them to read more. That is the whole premise. And again, if you start using this, you will be in a better spot and starting to book more meetings. But of course, if you ever want my support to really build this and test out subject lines for your ICP, your niche, feel free to book a call in the description.